SDG 1, no poverty. Extreme poverty and the manifestation of it has been experienced by people worldwide for as long as we can remember. But the decline of poverty is underway, but has been very, very slow. In 2019, just to give you a little bit of background before we introduce our speakers, the latest progress of SDG 1 showed that the world is not, I repeat, the world is not on track to achieve the target of less than 3% of the world living in extreme poverty by 2030. Strong social protection systems and government spending on key services often help those left behind get back on their feet and escape poverty. But these services need to be brought to scale.
And so, to discuss what real-world solutions are needed to accelerate change for SDG number 1 of no poverty, please join me in welcoming our incredible lineup of young changemakers, Azalea Ayuningtyas, Pooja Kaul, and Vania Santoso. All right, I'll motion to the speakers now to please introduce yourselves briefly, and then we can start off with the first question. Let's start with Azalea, and then Pooja, and we can end with Vania.
Okay, hi everyone. It's thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's really great to be able to share my experiences with all of you, and can't wait to our discussion later on. My name is Azalea Ayuningtyas. You can call me Ayu. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Duanyam and Kreologi. So with Duanyam, we are a social enterprise that connect women artisans in remote areas of Indonesia with the market in order to empower women, promote culture, and improve their livelihoods. So we've currently worked with over 1,400 women artisans in 3 provinces in Indonesia, mostly in East Indonesia, where the poverty is still a very big issue. And we are training them and then selling their products to more than 300 wholesale buyers, both in Indonesia and also globally. And currently, we are aiming to scale our impact and our business by having Kreologi, where we offer our system and our platform to work with more social entrepreneurs, more young aspiring entrepreneurs like all of you all over Indonesia to amplify our impact. And there's a very short video just to give you an understanding of what we do and the context of where we work. If Esta, if you could help with that video. Thank you.
Yes, our team is pulling out right this second. Here we go.
Gandai tobo tena tena tu gandai tede koi ilena po tobo tena tena tu gandai watan haka watan haka lerin dore watan haka.
I love it. Ayu, that was so good. And I think also a really great portrayal of Duanyam and Kreologi, bringing up also a very important topic, which we will cover in today's discussion, working and empowering women to actually reach the goal of SDG 1. So stay tuned for that. And hello as well to everybody joining in. Welcome to day 1 of YOUTHTOPIA Unite. We're just in the process of introducing our speakers. Ayu just went, and now we are moving on to Pooja Kaul from India.
Hi everyone, excited to be a part of this Unite SDG 1 goal. No poverty. I'm Pooja Kaul from New Delhi, India, capital of India, of course. And I'm a founder of a social enterprise called Organico Beautifying Life, a venture creating livelihood opportunity for donkey owner communities, people who own donkeys in our country, by utilizing their untapped resource, that is donkey's milk, to create skincare products. We are using untapped resource to give them a stable livelihood opportunities and also improve their lifestyle income level by $2 to minimum of $16 to maximum $26 per day. And we are currently working with the 4 communities in India, and also we are now in a process of scaling up to the different villages and the cities of in our country. And we basically work with the migrated labor who come to the outskirts of cities and where they work at construction site and bricklins.
Thank you, Pooja, for joining us tonight all the way from India. Pooja is actually also part of our Youthtopia Circle of Youth Network, so we're very happy to have you joining us tonight. We have India, we have Indonesia, and we actually have one more person from Indonesia. Vania, over to you.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm Vania from Indonesia, and I co-founded Hey Started, a social enterprise that works on promoting the green lifestyle through the innovation of upcycling. And it's more into how we can create the sustainable fashion as well as accelerating the circular economy, on how we can really showcase that upcycled products are actually still fashionable, and at the same time, fashionable products could really be eco-friendly. So actually I have example of my products here. So this is one of the product that I'm talking about. It's from upcycling of the cement sack actually, but at the very first sight, most of people when they came to our bazaar, they would ask like, hey, what kind of leather that is? So that's something that we could use to really support that. Promoting green lifestyle is something that we can do in a fun way. So yeah, hopefully we can share together more about the SDG one. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Vania. We're happy to host you here alongside an all-female lineup, you guys. This is great. Really excited to see everyone here together. And now we're going to move in straight into the first question, which usually in our Youthtopia webinars is going to be the warm-up hot potato question, right? I think we can start first with Vania again, right? With our first question, then we'll pass it around. The question is, how do you imagine a world with no poverty to be like? In just 3 words.
I would pick 3 different words. First is freedom, and then the second one would be just, and the last one is about ecological.
Love that combination. Again, you know, it really represents what you stand for from Hey Starting, right? It's all about a combination between, again, livelihoods, but also taking into mind the environment. So I love that so much. Let's move on to Pooja. What do you think, Pooja? 3 words, a world with no poverty.
I would say, obviously, the one and major most important, healthcare, and no discrimination, and education.
Love these different, again, it's all different answers, and it really shows just how, again, the issue of no poverty really transcends the different sectors across the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Very cool. How about you, Azalea? Last one, 3 words.
I'm going to cheat just a little bit. So I think it will be equal opportunity for all.
Just making it, that is actually a great one, pulling a sentence together. I think, here we see a warm-up question just to get everybody in the mood, but I also wanted to move to the next question, really to set the stage. What is it? What is the status quo of Sustainable Development Goal number 1, no poverty? What is it in our local countries and areas joining us tonight? Can you explain us, share a little bit of anecdotes, stories of what the situation is locally on the ground about SDG number 1. Shall we start from Indonesia? I know most of our audience is calling in from here. Azalea, I'm just going to pass it right back to you. How would you set the stage for SDG number 1 right now?
So I think because we are working in NTT East Nusa Tenggara, and also we have a bit of a project in Papua as well. So those 2 provinces, they're actually in the top 3 of the highest poverty rate in Indonesia. So we've had like volunteers before coming from outside of Indonesia, and they came to Jakarta and to like Flores where we work, and they really say that it's literally a different country, right? Because it's just so different, like the level of access, you can already tell it just by being there. And I think in the beginning, really when we were trying to, when we start our project, our focus was actually on maternal and child health and nutrition. And when we're trying to figure out the root causes of why there's health problem, nutrition problem, we realize that it goes back to socioeconomic problems, or again, going back to the poverty problem. So one of the examples that were really shocking to us is that a lot of the women, they aren't able to access the healthcare services. And very, very surprisingly is that actually giving birth in the clinic is free. However, people still couldn't go to the clinic to give birth. And the reason being starts from, it's very difficult to get transportation to go to the clinic. all the way to like very small things that they have to do a photocopy of their ID. And it literally costs them like 10 cents, 20 cents. And sometimes they don't have cash to pay for copying their ID. And the reason being is that mostly they can live through subsistence agriculture. So they just grow their own food and they eat whatever grows from their food. But yeah, but without having any cash, it's difficult for them to access healthcare services, to access education, right? And then also it's about what happened with the climate change also that they see there when the harvest is not good, then they don't have enough food to eat. So in the good situation they can live. Some services like healthcare, some education is provided for free. However, they're kind of like their life is really, unstable. It really depends on external factor that they cannot control. And
Yeah.
and so I think that's literally is the essence of the poverty that we see. So very small unexpected things happen, and then all their life will fall apart.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that perspective, Azalea, about Indonesia. Because again, we all know that Indonesia is actually in the G20, right? We're a rising, growing economy, but still, poverty still persists across our archipelago, right? We're a huge nation. Even the rural areas still experience it as well. That's why we have you and our change makers here to really change that reality, hopefully in the next 10 years by 2030. Let's travel to India a little bit, right? Let's see what it's like in India before going back to Indonesia with Fania. What about you, Pooja? What do you have to say for India?
So here the condition is, I would not say all negative. Here there are the positive positive effect of SDG 1 as well as the negative, obviously. So if we talk about from the women perspective, the condition of women is little hard here because I'm working with the communities, the slum communities, and where the women are not allowed to come out of their home to work. So there are people, we go to the city area, there are the women where the condition of women is pretty better than the rural or the village areas of India, remote areas of India. And we talk about the employment right now. So obviously because of the current crisis, there are like the wave of unemployment is larger as compared to the last year. The young people are losing job, and it is little hard to get them job opportunity. And if we talk about the social protection scheme, Narega, the Mahatma Gandhi the scheme for the rural employment opportunities, the statistics of the unemployed people is so large that the government is not able to fulfill that requirement of the job opportunities. The condition is pretty hard, but at the same time, there are young change makers, there are social entrepreneurs, there are NGOs working to improve the condition in India. I know like many NGOs and the many social like entrepreneurs, they are coming out with the different very innovative ideas to fulfill that gap of SDG1, and they are providing livelihood opportunity by utilizing different resources. They are providing livelihood to the women of communities. They are giving livelihood to young children. They are educating them, providing them skill to be on their be independent. So it is like mixture of all. I would not talk about the only negative aspect of the SDG here. There are the positive point as well, and people are doing it. People are actually trying to improve the condition. So this is the current condition of India, and obviously the healthcare is a lot impacted. So because of the COVID crisis as well. So people are, as I said, that people are losing job, but at the same time, young people are coming out to provide them the job opportunities and help them with this crisis. So there are many positive cases in India where people are coming with the different perspective, different ideas to employ people. And right now I'm there where I'm working with the community where people I'm working with the migrated communities. Basically the people work at construction site and bricklines. Because of COVID, the bricklines and the constructions all have stopped. So they are getting unemployed and they are going back to their villages. The reverse migration is happening in our country. If you see in April and May, just after the lockdown, there was a labor crisis in our country, and that was really, really bad. Now the condition is little improving, although the COVID is same, but people are coming back to their cities, coming back to their work stations, but the job opportunity is very less. And where I'm working currently, I've been noticing that the people are now working at the labor. They are working at the contract basis, working on the contract basis. Sometimes they are getting jobs, sometimes they are not. It does all depend on their luck. So yeah, this is the condition right now in our country.
Yeah.
And
And
about my project was, yeah,
Pooja, can I just jump
basically
in
we are
here?
working with the donkey owner community.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Pooja,
yeah.
can I just jump in here? Because I think you bring up a really interesting point, which I want to cover with other speakers as well, on unemployment and the pandemic. And we want to get to that. But just circling back to what Pooja said, also opening her status quo in India, I wanted to bring up this really interesting fact, and I'm reading it here off of my fact sheet. But basically, here it says the poverty rate for women aged 25 to 34 is estimated to be 12% in 2020, which means approximately 13.4 million women in that age group live in extreme poverty in India. And, you know, Pooja, this is what you were saying as well, and what Azalea was also talking about of, okay, there's this massive gap where women are in poverty, but there are projects that young people are leading, young change makers, young entrepreneurs, where we're connecting the dots and saying 1 + 1 equals empowering females leads to no poverty and is a stepping stone. So I guess we're gonna jump to that question before we round up to, you know, the bigger deal of the pandemic and unemployment and all of that. But I wanted to really stick with this theme of empowering women. Azalea, you work with women. We saw it in your video. You had a beautiful story and storyline of what that does. Can you talk to us a little bit more about empowering women can lead to the achieving goal number 1?
I think there's two things just in globally. The research has shown that when women are able to earn income for their family, then more will be spent towards like the education, nutrition, and health. And you know, as opposed to men who would probably spend it more, investing it more on assets. So like on their homes, on their perhaps on their motorcycles, or on like the animals and so on, right? So women really hold the key and to like other things that we discussed, like health, education, right? So that's number one. And I guess in our context, especially in the remote areas in East Indonesia, and I think in many places in the world, you know, women decision making power is actually still pretty low, because the male household of the family are the ones who can decide what to do with the money. And so when our project give the women income, they become more confident, right? Because now they contribute very clearly to the family. Well, before they also contribute in taking care of the lands, but mostly the lands are held under the name of the male family, right? So now it's very clear how much they're contributing to the family, so they're able to make decisions. And when they're making decisions, their number one decision is always about the family or the children. And so this helps, you know, the next generation also to gain you know, more education, more health, and so they're able to kind of like graduate from the level of poverty that they start with. I think that's very important. And for us, to be honest, to be frank, in the beginning, we weren't really planning for women empowerment or women increase of decision making power to be like our target. However, this is what we experience and we see. So after Duanyam, the women are more confident, and not just in their own household or in their own family, but also in the village meeting. They want to voice what they think about because they have confidence. And so when women also have a say in how to use the village fund and everything, you know, the investment can also move towards more of the soft skills that's needed to help the next generation and then themselves to live out of poverty.
Love that. Love the honesty too. Again, right? It's all growth. It's all evolution, step by step. I'm glad to see that that's already a huge part of what Duanyam does as well. Which I'm curious now about Vania and Hey Startic, actually, because you know Hey Startic is also a fellow social enterprise, and I'm curious how your work actually also empowers the women creators, the ones that actually creates your handicrafts and all of that. How does that work, and what are your thoughts on this issue?
So adding from what Azalea mentioned, when we talk about the women empowerment, what we are doing in Hey Startic is also to really involving the men, just because they're still a part of the decision making anyway, on how the, for example, when the housewives that we are empowering is like trying to do their activities, but then if the husband is not really allowing, or like, you know, that kind of no, you cannot do that, you need to be in the house, like focusing on taking care of your children, that kind of stigma. That's something that we really need to tackle as well, on how we can really empower this woman as well. So what we are doing in Hey Startic is really to involve both parties. Yes, women empowerment is our main target actually, just because me and my sister is both females, and then one of my role models is also my mom. So that's how we are really thinking of aiming the woman first. But then when we are trying to approach them, we experience that kind of like a barrier from the male side. So that's how we try to really give the opportunities for both parties, like the male and female as well, to participate in our workshop, give them like the training on how they can have more skills, not only about the handcrafting, but also like relevant things to support this economic process as well. For example, the male could also support the logistic part, or even being a part of the craftsman as well, because our main craftsman on the front line is basically male. So that's something that we see as an interesting point of view, that when we talk about the women empowerment, we also really need to have the male point of view as well, so that they could collaborate hand in hand as well for the generation equality itself.
Vania, I think you just answered Raquel, your question here in the comments. Perfectly, really with tangible examples of how when we talk about women empowerment, it needs to include you know, the male population, it needs to include the males in the community. And I think also SDG #1 is for all genders, and it's about empowering the community forward, right? That's how we achieve no poverty. But let's take a zoom back and not only target, you know, the female empowerment question. Pooja, the next question is for you. Really explain to us, those that don't know much about SDG 1, myself as well being a learner here in this space, why aren't we moving faster? What are the barriers in place that prevent us from achieving SDG #1? And you can give us insight to India locally or some thoughts globally, but explain to us, why isn't it happening faster?
Okay, so this is my own perspective. We know that SG1 is related to no poverty, and we stick to that. There are the more components related to no poverty. It include the education, it include the healthcare, it include the every 17 SDGs goal. And what is happening, I believe that why we are not moving faster is that we are more focused on that. We do not want to, we just focus on that we have to eliminate the poverty line, and we have to create more income level. That is the main point we are more focusing on. We are leaving the other point as well, that all included to the SDG1. That is, we have to improve the education system, we have to improve the healthcare system, we have to improve the social protection and all the basic amenities which people need. Then only we can move faster, because everything is interrelated, interconnected. You cannot just focus on the one perspective. And this is the reason that I believe that we are moving slow. And if I talk about the India, the educated class, they know about the SDG, its goals. If you go into the primary school, if you go into the high school, people do not about what exactly SDGs are. So there's a lack of awareness in our country. People do not know about the 17 goals, why it is made, and how we have to achieve. So achieving is a different, term. When you do not know exactly what SDG is, how are you going to achieve? So the first move toward it, first step toward achieving that, creating awareness about about this SDGs, telling people exactly what SDGs are, why we should improve, we should work on the no poverty or decent employment or other aspect. Then I believe that we can move forward. This is the right now the condition in our country.
Agreed. And that's why we're all here, right? That's why we created Unite. That's why we're all here today and for the next 16 days, so that we can raise awareness and learn more about these 17 sustainable development goals. I'm curious what Vania thinks.
Before you go forward, just because Pooja, as I was listening to you, it really sparked something inside of me, and it reminded me as well of like the purpose of why we're doing this tonight. And you brought up the topic of, it's really difficult when we talk about achieving things if we still have to educate and bring awareness about what it is we're trying to achieve. And the funny thing is that I oftentimes say, like, when young people ask, what do I have to do to get started? My answer is always, know your end goal, right? And as soon as you know what it is you want to see change, then it works a lot easier. So SDG 1, just a summary in one sentence, a summarized way of what SDG 1 is targeting. And I really advise everyone, please go to the United Nations website and dive into the sub-goals, because each goal has sub-goals. That's really important to understand. But first one for SDG number 1 is by 2030, eradicate extreme poverty for all people everywhere, currently measured as people living on less than $1.25 a day. Okay, so this is what we want to achieve in the next 10 years. So that's, in a summary, one of the biggest goals or sub-goals under SDG number 1, no poverty. So I think, Pooja, just that was a real side note, but I wanted to make sure we got that in at today's webinar, and we will make sure that we include that in our future Unite sessions, making sure that, you know, we cover at least 1 or 2 sub goals, because I think it's important, and you inspired me tonight, Pooja. So thank you for that. Back to Esta, who is going to pass it to Vanya.
Yes, love little eureka moments. This is why Unite is here. It's very important. We're all involved and getting inspired, right? So what about you, Vanya? What do you think are the barriers that, you know, prevent us from achieving our targets for SDG 1?
I think what you earlier mentioned about how, especially in Indonesia, in our country, is like it's growing in terms of the economic growth, but at the same time, like more of underprivileged communities are also still experiencing that poverty. I think the main challenge is about the economic gap, or like the wealth redistribution itself, on how we can really try to have this kind of equality, on how we can really have this wealth itself, the growth of the economy is really well distributed to all people across the countries, because again, this is like a big archipelago country, and not only Indonesia, but also in other countries. It's really about how we can make sure that not only this one person that really having this rich or wealth that he or she has, but how it could really go well to the other communities as well, especially those in the underprivileged one. And how I see that as a barrier is really about the decision making itself, because some of the time, like those the privileged people, the privileged communities who already have the access to the economic itself is really being more how to say that, it's more into like how they choose it, not based on the economic empowerment, like more into, for example, just a clear example in daily life, like the rich people prefer to buy a branded products. This is just a little example that we can see that this whole paradigm will just actually only benefiting to like the big companies, but what about the small medium enterprises, and how they could really accelerate their economic growth if the rich people will only buy from the big industries only, even though we are aware that those big industries are also having the employment from the people. But then the question is, how transparent are they in terms of the fair trade, etc.
Yeah. Vanya, you are almost thinking like one step ahead every single time. I'm really liking the synchronization that we have, because again, here you dive into the next part, which is really tangible actions. And I want to head to this part because we also want to encourage the audience. Remember, there's a Q&A section where you get to unmute yourself, share your video, and ask a question directly to our panelists. Just write your question in the chat box and our team will reach out to you through the selection process. The next question for our speakers, as we wait for those questions from our audience coming in, is really exactly in line what Vanya was saying with those tangible to-do lists, right? I want to first start with a industrial, corporate, government, systemic change. what would you say? And let's keep it short and sweet. What are the top 3 things you feel needs to be done on a more systemic level, either targeted to government, corporations? What is their to-do list that they need to have in order to achieve SDG number 1? Azalea, hot potato, you first.
I'm just gonna share what I thought, and I think like this is food for thought for everybody here, right? Okay, I might not be able to say 3 things, but I want to follow up after Vania, what Vania is sharing. So it really depends. If we want to accelerate this, we do need people who have resources and the power and decision-making power to really allocate those resources to solving this problem. So who held the most resources? I think 2. One is like the private sector, so people who have the capital, right? And then the second one is the government, right? And I would start with saying like the problem, and as we know, like with capitalism, there's really like the main goal is to continue generating like wealth, and sometimes leaving behind those who are underprivileged or more difficult to work with because of geographic, because of previous historical things. Is easier because you'll get return much faster. And so really like I was joining this talk also about reimagining capitalism, right? It's really about how we can align the goals as the younger generation, how we can also showcase that we care about these things, and that becomes a crucial key metrics for the capitalists to actually allocate their resources to this. Otherwise, like it will be difficult for them to allocate resources there. So like a lot of young change makers like you guys in Utopia, I think it's very important to raise that awareness. Now the second one with government, right? The government is more very bureaucratic and old institution. And really, I am saying this also with my own experience because my husband has now like joined part of the government. And really, what we really need is that we need young change makers like everybody here to actually join government and create change from the inside as well. Because like what the second part is like what is also important is that everybody's not working alone. And I really appreciate a lot of the younger people, change maker. We like to be, raising awareness of things, being an activist. That's really amazing. But don't forget that for things to work, we need to have partnership, which is like the SDG 17. And by partnership is like, sometimes it also means negotiation. Sometimes it means you have to join things that you don't like the government, in order to create change from the inside and work together for the solution. Yeah.
There we go. The elephant in the room, guys. I hope that you're all pen and paper in hand. I'm learning all of these things. Moving on to Vanya, 3 top things for on a systemic level. We heard Azalea's. What are your thoughts, keeping it still here in Indonesia? 3 tangible things you think that on a systemic level needs to change.
Yeah, so actually building on from what Azalea's already mentioning, I think the private sector really plays an important role because they are the ones that basically also being a part of the stakeholder, the playmaker of this economic growth as well. So I would say that if there could be like beyond than just the CSR or corporate social responsibility, it should really be a part of the corporate programs and how they could really support the economic empowerment, small, medium enterprises, because like, for example, private sectors always have an event, and then how they could actually produce their corporate merchandise by supplying from by sourcing from the small, medium enterprises. That's actually part of having this support for the SDG 1 as well. And that's where Heystartik and also Duanyam also play a role and producing merchandise for the corporate, and how it could also help the local communities to grow. So yes, basically having the private sectors to really make a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the CSR, it's not just about a small percentage of the profit, but really having it as a part of their work plan that, hey, economic empowerment is important, and really to look at the communities as well. I think that will be my main top request.
I think, again, private sector has so much potential to get involved beyond the CSR. I think that's key here that we're seeing. And all of us young change makers, I think that that's also a space that we learn quite quickly about how to implement sustainable, long-lasting change. And that goes beyond a one-time annual event. So thank you for bringing that up, Vanya. Very important. Pooja, give us some thoughts on your top 3 short and sweet to-do list that you give for the larger systems change.
I think the first one is investment. I guess that government and the private sector, they should invest in the small enterprises, small startups, social enterprises. In our country, I've seen that I'm running a startup, social startup, and we are seeing here there's a lack of proper distribution, like the monetary distribution in our communities. So there are people like us, the young changemaker, who need the funds to support their initiative. They need their funds to support the local enterprises or the local artisan or the local people. So I think that believe that government or the private enterprise should start like investing in the small enterprises, MSMEs of the country. And secondly, I believe that government should promote local local businesses. So in our country, right, recently after the pandemic, government has started the same campaign, vocal for local, where they are promoting Indian goods, they're promoting Indian artisans, Indian small businesses, and asking people to boycott the foreign goods. And I'm not asking you to boycott, but at the same time, I believe that people should support their local businesses and the local enterprises. That is the motive behind that will lead you toward the no poverty. Because if they have the stability of income, then definitely we can go into the same direction. So these two are my important aspect and a component I believe government should implement.
Okay, super interesting. I have my notebook super full. I've got a new lens on SDG 1 and the to-do list for a more systemic approach. I'm going to ask another question, targeting to our audience, to all of you here who might be wondering, how can I, as an individual, contribute to achieving SDG 1? What are some of the things I can do? So take it a step to a more personal approach. Tell us one thing that you think can be helpful. And you may have said it, but think of a different way, another way you can say it. What exactly can we all do here, all of us joining tonight, to participate in achieving SDG 1? Vanya, can we start with you?
So as individual itself, I think it's very important for us to understand the issue well. As one of the question here mentioned by Christy is about how can we spread awareness as well. So as long as we are aware of something and we know about that thing, then it will also help shaping our mindset as well, to be more mindful whenever we are about to buy something, for example, whenever we are about to have a partnership with somebody. So basically, educate ourselves is really the most important thing, to be more aware about the environment, so that once we educate ourselves, we can educate others as well and have this mindset being set in our mind. And whenever we have to choose anything, to make decisions, then we can really be more mindful about this poverty eradication.
Okay, so Vanya's to-do list for all of us is to educate ourselves as best as possible. So we have a couple of homework things to do, I believe. Thank you, Vanya. Azalea, what about you? How can we as individuals contribute?
Yeah, I think definitely number one, as Vania said, is educate. And then the next part is, also taking actions. So in the beginning, I think it will be great to be joining. You don't have to start everything on your own, but joining, perhaps there's other social enterprise that's already been running, or even as I said, you could be joining like either government or even joining private sectors on their sustainability part, and try to take action and learning by doing as well, so that after that you'll be able to give recommendation and perhaps make change in a more systemic level.
Love it, because that asks us to learn from doing, right? So volunteering, again, guys, I'm seeing a lot of great comments here of how individually you're all raising your voice. I think volunteering is a great one, spreading awareness, donating if possible. Really awesome. I think, Pooja, you're the next one to give us a to-do list on our individual changemaker.
Okay. Yeah. So my suggestion is know the power of collaboration, basically. So all the change makers joining us tonight, I would say, just if you're working on some idea, or if you know people in your area or the community is working on something, help them to collaborate with the different social enterprises, different NGOs, different startups, because that's how, by supporting each other, will grow each other, and the power of togetherness, the power of collaboration is one of the major component to achieve anything, anything in life. So I would suggest you to just work on this, know more about your responsibilities, learn more about the SDGs, and here.
Okay. And especially collaboration, right? When we talk about that, it's never been more important than right now. Amidst the pandemic that we're going on at the moment, we've seen really that the world has become so small and yet so big. We can be really connected for those of us that are privileged enough to have the access to the digital world. But we've also seen a larger gap grow. So Amael, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but please unmute yourself and share your video, because I think your question really again targets the expectations of larger institutions. So Amael, yes, you're with us. Introduce yourself and go directly to the questions to the panelists.
Hi everyone, thanks for the talk and for the opportunity to ask my question. So I'm a master student in international development, and I was really interested to ask you, what changes do you think are needed at the global level? So at the UN or other international organizations, and also in diplomacy, international relations. So what needs to be done there to tackle the systemic issues related to the SDG 1?
Thank you very much for your question. You can keep your camera on as the panelists go. Who wants to take it first?
Well, I'll give it a shot. So I think with the large international organization, perhaps there's some similarity with the government, because there's a lot of bureaucracy, and it's pretty old institution, right? So there are things that was set up because of old situations. So I think how the world now is completely different. Everything's really fast. Everything's connected, as Melati said. So the best startup is the one that actually agile and adapt to changes really quick. Try fast, fail forward kind of attitude. And I think that kind of like different ways of doing things is needed. And also to get more local context, because there is a lot of, even though we're connected, but it's very different in different areas of the world. So trying to partner with the local organization, local community, and get local context. I think those two things, being more agile and getting more local context for partnership.
Great. Who wants to take that up to the UN or the World Bank, right? Ask them to be more agile. Let's go. That's another challenge at the global level right there. Thank you, Amael, for that question. Also for Azalea. Let's move to Pooja. What do you think can be done or should be done at the global level?
Okay, so I agree with Zal, because actually, as I said, the power of collaboration. So working together and supporting each other will definitely help us to, towards the development. And I believe at global level, supporting each other at the same time, supporting your local resources, by utilizing them, by providing that resources to your communities and creating awareness in your community will help you achieve those goals. So this is what I feel.
Vania, do you want to give the answer a go, or?
Basically, all pretty much covered. Well, when we talk about the larger organization, yes, it really needs to have, like, for example, I would say more into the coordination as well, because when it comes to like bigger international organization, most of the time what happens at the global level do not really translate well or adapt it well in the local context, and how we really need to have a grassroots approach as well that is not really aligned with the advocacy model in the upstream level. So that's something that it needs to be also considered. And as Azalea mentioned about the bureaucracy itself, I do agree on that, about how actually the UN bodies, it really needs to also think about how to make a less complicated system if they'd like to partner with youth-led organizations, for example, because we are the ones on the front line, as Utopia's team members said, that the young changemakers are in the front lines creating change, but then most of the times there is like a challenge in terms of, for example, the foundation certificate that the young changemakers might not have just yet, just because they are still working on it. But then that also applies to something that we cannot really cooperate with that big international organizations, despite of the fact that perhaps we might have the capacity to eradicate the poverty itself. So yeah.
Thank you, Vania. Amel, I hope that answered your questions. I can see you typing away, so hopefully you got some good golden nuggets there. I think it's really important as well, the last point of being more accessible. Very interesting. The next person that we would like to invite to unmute would be Kriti. Please unmute yourself, share your video, and ask the panelists the questions.
Hi, I'm Kriti. I'm from India and I'm 11 years old. My question is, how do you think is the best way to spread awareness about zero hunger?
Thank you, Kriti. We're very happy to have you joining us tonight. Pooja is also based in India, so we're just going to pass it over there. Just note, Kriti, we are focusing on SDG 1, no poverty, but I think it definitely relates to a lot of the other SDGs. So Pooja, do you want to give it a go answering Kriti's question?
Hello. Can you just repeat the question? I missed the last part.
How do you think is the best way to spread awareness about climate change?
Okay,
I mean, not climate change, zero poverty.
No poverty, is it?
Yeah, sorry, I'm used to saying
It's okay.
I think the best way to kind of approach this question, I mean, Kriti, you're 11 years old, right?
Yes.
So this is the prime age, the perfect age where a lot of us are starting to question, hey, I want to get involved, but what are the best techniques? What have you learned by being on the front line that is something that you could share with Kriti to get her started on spreading awareness?
Yeah, so Kriti, I would suggest, first of all, at your age, I had no idea about what SDGs are. So first of all, very congratulations, you are going forward. And secondly, I would definitely suggest use the internet. You have the internet, you have the resources. Just start reading about some stuff. There are many educational websites. They talk about the SDGs. They talk about the different goals we have to achieve in very, very productive way, in very simple way, where people or the child can come and then read about it and know and get aware. At the same time, your school, obviously you have the teachers and they have all the resources. You have just ask them about different questions, ask them about the goals. And during my high school, there was this like period where we had the freedom to ask anything about any topic. And I remember that one of the student, my friend, asked about the environment changes and everything. That was the first time I got to know about the environment crisis in our country. That was the first like face to face of my life. So you have the different resources available. You have the internet connections and you are using the Zoom call. I'm definitely sure that you're aware about the uses. So utilize the resources which is already available, and obviously the classes are going online, and definitely you can use that. And you also have different forum and different change maker available across the like internet. You can go to the LinkedIn, you can go to the and the Facebook, you contact them directly. And I know majority of the change maker will love to reply your questions. So these are the resources you utilize.
Exactly. And I think just to add on to that, Kriti, while we have you here, and a shout out for Youthtopia as well, in the coming weeks, we will make a couple of exciting announcements where we actually do create videos that are educational about every single SDG, attached with a guidebook as a resource. So they dive deeper in who is active on a global level, on a more local level, which organizations. I saw there was another question, which organizations are, role modeling, I guess, which companies could do better. So keep an eye out on our website, www.youthtopia.world, because we're going to be creating all of this content, releasing it out for people like you who are asking the big questions and want answers. Okay. I don't know, Azalea or Vania, would you want to give your 2 cents really quickly, because I know we're running out of time?
Yeah, just super quickly, as Melati said, and I think Vania is saying as well, if you could also volunteer. And when I was your age, or perhaps like 13 or 14, I was volunteering as well for a couple of projects, working directly with the people in the slum area, for example, so that you can also bring your friend. Like you can educate and raise awareness to your friend, or even to your own family, whether not your parents, but maybe your aunts and uncles. And that already really counts, and plus social media right now, right? So when you're doing those things, when you're volunteering, when you're learning new things, you can share it as well to your network and your community.
Okay, thank you, Azalea.
Thank you,
Vania.
Yeah, adding from what Pooja already mentioned about utilizing your available resources. I think what's important as well when we talk about educating is about knowing your audience. So who you'd like to educate, whether it's your peers or perhaps it's the local communities and the grassroots, or who are your target audience basically, because the way you deliver your message need to be tailored. Like for example, if you talk to your peers with a similar age as well, maybe you'd like to make a visual about the comics or something like a little bit more fun. But then when you talk to the parents at the local communities, then you might need to reshape your materials as well. So yeah, basically know your target audience so that you could communicate it clearly. Hope that works.
Thank you so
Fighting.
much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Kriti, for joining. That's so, it's amazing. Again, echoing what Pooja said, when I was your age, when I was 11, I didn't even know what the SDGs were. I wasn't involved in these types of things. So proud of you for joining us and look forward to seeing you in our next, 16 days ahead, right? Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Again, Kriti. Awesome. All right. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so we cannot answer any more questions from our audience, but don't worry, we will provide more information on our speakers' organizations and their social media so that you can contact them directly and hopefully they can answer your questions as well. And stay tuned for more things on Youthtopia. Just to recap the the rich discussion that we all just had about SDG number 1, we already understand about the status quo. Yes, things are sort of speeding up, but it has been slowed down by COVID-19. But we've been given some to-do lists, right? We've been given some to-do lists by our speakers at both the individual level, but also at the global industrial level. Individually, we can definitely collaborate, educate ourselves, raise awareness with our capacities on this issue of zero poverty or no poverty, right? And we can also be involved with donating and volunteering. That's what we can do at the individual level, but also to our industry leaders. Who knows, some industry leaders tuning in right now and later watching in our video, right? Also global leaders. We have some to-do lists for you too. We heard from our speakers, try to explore new business and leadership models that are more circular, right? That empower livelihoods at the rural level, at the national level. Make sure that you innovate your business models every day, and also promote SDG 17. We mentioned that a lot, right? The power of collaboration and really seeking help from all different sectors, right? Cross-sectoral collaboration is the way to go. I feel like I might have missed something. Is there anything you want to add, Malati, from that
No,
recap?
I think it was a good recap. I'm just kind of processing like, oh no, did an hour just go by? I'm really amazed and really humbled by everybody joining us. We had a core group staying with us all throughout the webinar. So thank you guys from everywhere that you're coming in. We'd now like to invite everyone to share their video. You can unmute yourself. You can say a little yay or hear a little clap for our speakers joining us today. We're going to move and take a group photo. So everybody smile. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But really appreciating also to the speakers, Azalea, Vania, and Pooja. Thank you so much, ladies, for your insight, for everything that you're doing, and for contributing to the Youthtopia Unite program. Thank you, everybody, and good night from Bali.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye. Thank you.